Everybody, welcome to the first Supp World podcast. My name is Dustin West. I'm joined here by my beautiful co-hosts, Jeff McAnarney and Jordon Shaw.
Howdy, howdy.
What's up, what's up?
So, very first podcast, very first time any of us have been on any podcast. So, needless to say, there's going to be some kinks that we're going to have to work out. But we're just going to kind of start this episode with just a little conversation. We're all obviously leaders of Supplement World. We're kind of just going to talk about how Supplement World began, who we are, and just give you a little bit of background on us and potentially what we're going to be doing on this podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting to me. We've been talking about it for a while and finally get it going. But just to be able to, it's now been 9.5 years. So to me, the most interesting thing is just kind of go back and talk about how we started and see the differences. And I'm sure there's things I forgot, you forgot, and that's really what we want to do is accomplish, is just kind of get out there and let people know what we're about. And so, yeah, it's been 9.5 years. Started at the health club, and Dustin and I got going with it. He worked for me, actually, doing membership sales. And I knew right away he was going to – I think you came in and started setting records right off the bat with membership sales. So I knew you had something special. You were only 20 years old when you started. We are, 11 years apart. I was 31. So started the company.
I'm almost as old as you were when I met you.
Correct.
I'm not there yet.
No.
30.
No, I was –
You were 31.
I was 30. 31, you're right. I was 32 when we started, correct.
You were 31 or 32 because I remember you always said you wanted to be free by 33.
There you go.
What got you started at Genesis? Was it you? Or
No, I didn't know Jeff prior to Genesis at all. So I started, I guess we can go all the way back to high school. Got out of high school. I did like a little semester at Butler and decided school it was never really for me.
it wasn't for you in high school either.
Yeah. So it didn't really translate to college either. So I just decided, man, I was really driven by sales and being competitive, like in the workforce. And I found myself first thing selling vacuum cleaners door to door, Rainbow, not Kirby, but Rainbow. Yeah. So
I interviewed for that one.
Yeah. So that's
I didn't even know that.
You guys didn't?
No.
I didn't know you went to Butler.
Dude, my mom still
like
has
a
a
semester.
fucking Kirby vacuum from like the fucking 80s.
Those things were legit. So it wasn't Kirby, it was Rainbow. It was called Rainbow. It was supposed to be more of like a air filtration. You never really called it a vacuum cleaner.
They sell you this dream.
They sell you the dream. While you're not vacuuming, you can filter the air with it. It was actually a great product, very expensive. I think it was like $3 or $4 grand. Mm-hmm. But that's how I kind of got my feet wet with sales. And if you can go door to door selling a product, you can do any sales job anywhere because that's the absolute hardest thing to do. Next would be like making cold calls, which I did that at Genesis. But so yeah, started off in kind of this vacuum cleaner. Didn't do that very long. It was just 6 months or so. Got into phone sales at the mall. So I was one of those annoying AT&T salesmen at the kiosk when you walk by. Hey, what phone service do you have? Try to pull people in, get them a phone, which is also a really, really good way to develop your sales skills. Did that for a few years. And then I was in Norman, Oklahoma and Oklahoma City with AT&T and just kind of stumbled upon, I think, like a Genesis app or Genesis deal online. They needed an assistant manager or something. So moved back to Wichita, got on at Genesis, started at the Hutchinson location in Hutchinson, Kansas. That's where I met Jeff. And we were there. I mean, I was there under a year. You were there, 13 years at the time?
Yeah, like 11 and a half, 12 before I met. It's funny how that all, you remember, first off, I had no idea you went to Butler. I've been telling everybody that you and I had zero.
When I say I went to Butler, I mean I took.
You enrolled.
I think a class.
I think I have like 2 credits, two college credits.
I didn't even have that. So
yeah.
Okay, well, good to know that. I'm surprised.
And it wasn't like right after high school. This was like a year after high school. I tried to do like 2. Yeah, it was.
Well, I can remember.
I wouldn't consider it going to college.
My boss said, "Hey, I'm going to take one of your best guys, but I'm going to send you this hot shot kid. He's going to kick butt. You're going to love him." And I'm like, "No, you're not taking one of my best guys for some rookie that normally only lasts a month." And I met Dustin that next day at the sales meeting. I said, "All right, we'll give this a try." And coincidentally, I've known Jordon longer. Jordon was partying at my house on weekends with my brother and his roommate who lived with me. And like I said, these guys are 12 years younger than me, partying at my house when I was still a bachelor, and I didn't really hang out with them, but they'd come by and I'd say, "Hey, there's this guy actually going to be starting working for me. His name's Dustin West." And I remember Jordon vividly being like, "Dustin's going to work for you? He's doing pretty good doing what he's doing." And I just remember you saying, "I think he'll be really good." I was like, "Well, good, because I lost one of my best guys for
Yeah. So gym membership sales was a blast. It was super fun.
What? Really?
Well,
also one of the hardest things you can do.
It's very hard. When I say it was a blast, I don't mean it's a blast like long term. Like while we were doing it, it was fun. And
yeah, we had fun because we had a good team. We were in first place.
Exactly. And I was there less than a year. We were working with cool people. That's also where I met my other business partner, Zach, that I do a little bit of real estate with now. He was a rep alongside me there, but
great for connections. Absolutely.
Great for connections. And it was one of those things you could just go out, and if you wanted to hustle, is just how competitive you wanted to be and how many sales you wanted to get. And that's kind of what it was at Genesis. So yeah, like I said, that's where me and Jeff met. And I was kind of at that point, I was 20 and obviously had thought for a while, like, what could I eventually go into business for myself with? And oddly enough, there was a little supplement store in Hutchinson. I think it was called Supplement U, and it was a smaller mom and pop shop, but they barely had any inventory. And I just remember there was always a lot of people in the gym repping the Supplement U, and I could never really understand why, or it seemed like they were doing really well. And I just thought, well, man, if they're doing that well here in Hutchinson, we could open a store here and probably, do even better.
Yeah, my first memory was, it wasn't very long into getting started that you talked about your buddy Nick and you almost starting a supplement store. And I just kind of laughed at these kids, I was super against retail. I grew up in a business that pretty much bashed retail, and I didn't know anything about supplements, still don't really. But you just kept bugging me, and the one thing I remember from the story was that I started a mowing company with my little brother, and that just eked you on, and you're like, we got to start a supplement store. Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. And you get in effort mode at times with your job. You've been there 11 years, and I think I finally said, okay, I got $30,000. We can get a $30,000 loan. And you said, we can do it. We can do it for $30,000.
So we started Supp World on a $30,000 loan, which we would not recommend to anybody, but we found a way to make it work. So yeah, that's kind of how everything began. And it is a tough question to answer when people ask, because it's one of the first questions. Well, how'd you get into supplements? I don't know about you, but I really never know how to respond, because it for a lot of people maybe who go into business may have had this dream for years or are really passionate. I can't say I was ever super passionate about supplements. I mean, I was passionate about fitness. I'd been, exercising, working out into fitness for years. And then obviously being a Genesis kind of amplified that. And I was around fitness a lot. And I took my fair share of supplements, never super passionate about supplements. I guess at the end of the day, I would just say that it looked like a business that was scalable, and it's a repeatable business. People, constantly buy supplements. It's a once a month purchase. It's a recurring purchase. So I saw it as a good business model. Obviously I was into supplements, and so
I think the timing was kind of perfect a little bit. I mean, as much as it was a struggle in the beginning days. Yeah. I mean, supplements was slow. I mean, even think about how much different, obviously, our business operates from Andover to now, but even think about how much bigger the industry is now than it was, in 2013 you guys started.
I think we came at the right time because we missed the easy time. Yeah. I believe the easy time was, I don't know if it was 2009 to 2013, but they started really banning a lot of ingredients. I know Cinetrex and all that stuff started really getting banned, or DMAA and ephedra. So and it was before bodybuilding.com blew up and Amazon blew up. So we luckily missed the easy times. So we started in a somewhat harder time, and I think that's what gives us an advantage to grow and understand that it's not easy, because just like gym membership sales, I think starting a supplement company is also one of the hardest things you can get into. And who knows if we would have started something else. I mean, I'm glad we did what we did and it worked out. But getting back to what you said earlier about passion, I love answering that question. I got interviewed by Hadley not too long ago for school, and I said, listen, it's going to sound weird, but you hear people say you have to be passionate about what you do. You have to. And I probably agree with that to the most part, but we didn't have a passion, like I said, for supplements, but we did have a passion for growing a business. We did have a passion for helping people, and we did have a passion for growing a team. And that's three things that we could do with any business. Exactly.
And I mean, with all the businesses and all the industries out there, let's just say glass sales, for instance, or, lumber sales, whatever it is, whatever industry. I mean, is it possible to be super passionate about these different things? So at some point, there's a kind of a line, I feel like, between being passionate about the product you're selling or the industry that you're in, and being passionate about growing a business, helping people, bringing value to people's lives. And you can be passionate about that within any industry. And, it's a little easier, I feel like, maybe with supplements versus lumber to be passionate about and be more into. So that was a little easier, but yeah, I mean, the super passion, like being super passionate about the actual product or the actual industry, I don't feel like is as necessary as being passionate about people, helping bring value.
So that supplement store, I think, closed by the time we opened or was getting to. So why didn't we open in Hutch? What's your answer? Because that was our original plan.
Yeah. So we decided Andover for our first store, obviously. Little town right outside of Wichita, Kansas, essentially is Wichita. I think Hutch, I don't know. I feel like we could grow into Wichita better. I feel like if we opened in Andover, the idea with Andover when we opened that store was there's obviously no other competition in the area in Andover. And then you have these outside surrounding areas. You have El Dorado, you have Augusta, you have Rose Hill, with obviously no other supplement stores in those areas as well. So the idea was kind of, hey, there's nothing out here. There's nothing in the surrounding areas. People are obviously going to come here. Well, as maybe not many of you or a lot of you know, our first store, Andover, that was our first store to close as well. So we've opened 10 stores. We've closed 2 of them. Andover was one of them, and it just unfortunately was just kind of a weird location.
We did last the whole lease, over 5 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the worst thing in the world.
No, we gave it a run for its money.
Start realizing, put your time and effort in things that make more sense, that you can grow. And we quickly realized, okay, this can only get so big. We could put our best people there. And we do thank our Andover customers because a lot of them did follow us over to East Central. And it was, to this day, the most exciting grand opening, not just because it was our first. The town did support us. The Chamber of Commerce came out. I mean, we had more hoopla on that grand opening than anything, even though we probably...
The ribbon cutting ceremony and all that, yeah.
A fraction of sales is what sometimes a normal day will do at our top stores. But I remember you sold me pretty quickly. I didn't want to. I wanted to start in Hutch because we were working there. And we thought, well, this will be an easy transition. We know people. But your thing was, Andover's got a lot of money. It's got people with money, which we've quickly realized that is not the formula for supplement nutrition sales.
No.
Rich areas, not always the best.
So what do you guys feel like was the biggest, struggle? Like those early days, obviously that was before my time. I mean, I was supporting you guys and I was doing other things at the time, but what was the biggest struggle? Looking back on it now, what held you guys back?
I don't know that anything held us back, but we did fight a lot. We did argue. He would be working the store.
I know what our biggest
12
struggle
hours
was.
a day, inventory.
I don't know if I really want to go into it, but yeah. Mainly just getting people in the store. I would say was our biggest struggle. I was going to kind of go into our competition back then.
Correct.
So, we there's obviously competitors everywhere you go. We had a little more of a hostile, I guess, competitor relationship with some of our local competitors when we first opened, which posed some challenges, but it also, I feel like at the same time, motivated us a little more. There was a lot of talk from a lot of people we knew or we knew of that, these guys are only going to last 6 months. So a lot of that kind of stuff, for me at least, always kind of drives a fire under me to prove people wrong. So it wasn't a super negative thing at the time hearing that, but it is also, rewarding to look back and kind of...
A little bit of a blessing in disguise type deal.
Right. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that was our biggest challenge. It was just maybe more...
Annoying.
It was a very annoying thing.
Did not see it coming.
It kind of held us back with some products that we wanted to get in, some different vendors that we wanted. We were kind of blocked off in certain areas, just some little things like that. I mean, I wouldn't say that's our biggest challenge, but like Jeff said, it was very annoying in the beginning. Our biggest challenge as far as the first store goes, I would say just getting people in the door. It was a weird location, and ultimately that's why we closed it. But just getting people in the door. Once we had people in, we knew we could give them a great experience and keep them as a customer long term. Just getting people in, man.
Started
Retail.
with zero capital too. I mean, we took our $30,000 loan. We spent $12,000 on the build out, which today is nothing. I mean, they could just tell you how crappy our store probably is. Product, I think we only had $11,000 in product to start, which is a fraction of what you want. And then from there, basically, if we had a $200 day, which happened more than it didn't, and it's hard to pay bills. And so Dustin was supposed to be working the store full time. I don't know if you guys remember this, but we went into the bank to get the $30,000 loan, and it was just Dustin, until we got the check, didn't even believe this was probably a possibility. He didn't know me that well. He didn't know finances like that. He was young. And I said, well, I know I can get a $30,000 loan, which we did, but it just didn't go very far. And this is back before I was thought, oh, wait, I do have credit cards I could use, which wasn't always a great thing once I realized that. But, yeah, it was not fun being able to, have no product on the store. I remember Dustin calling me a few months in and said, hey, man, we got a lot of people commenting that our store's empty, and this doesn't look good. And, my thing is I don't give a crap. We don't have money. I don't know what you want me to do. I remember texting him at like 1 o'clock. Hey, what are we at? Hey, we're still $180. Quit asking me.
I'll text you when we have a sale. I promise you, because it's few and far between. But I feel like that was maybe another blessing in disguise was the finance issue, and that was one of our biggest challenges, especially. I mean, I would say first 2 to 3 years, just dealing with the finances in a retail business. It's very difficult to figure out how the finances exactly work because you're bringing in money, but depending on what your margin is, let's say at least half of that money needs to go back in buying product.
Yes, every time.
And when there's other expenses and you're not exactly in the green yet with your business, you may need to use some of that money coming in to buy other things, and then you may not have enough left over to rebuy your products and still have the margin that you should have and the profit left over. So it was a challenge. It was a struggle, definitely at first. I will say, though, it probably conditioned us to operate more lean and not just have like this huge safety net that we're always falling back on, this big bank account, with this capital that we can always just rely on. It taught us, we need to be strategic with what we're selling and then reordering and how we're using that money. And I think it helped long term.
Absolutely. Jordon, what do you remember about the old days? You were a customer or were you working?
Yeah, I mean, I was a customer like right in the beginning. And then not too long after that, I got hired on at Complete Nutrition. And that's where it was kind of jokingly, it was kind of like this nudge deal with Dustin. Well, I'm going to work over here for a little bit, and then I'll jump over with you guys, and
we'll figure cover out. A couple hours when he wanted to leave?
I showed up just to see how he was doing. He's like, hey, I got to run to the bank. You hang out. I was like, what the fuck?
That's how much I trust you, even a couple years
I was like,
before
what?
you worked.
I don't even like that guy. What are you doing?
Yeah. The customer, he's like, no one's going to come in. And like 2 customers walk in right after he left. And I'm like, I have no idea what to fucking do. So I just start bullshitting with people and come back in. I'm looking at the computer screen. I'm like, okay, well, I got product up here, but I don't know how to fucking sell it. So Dustin walks back in and closes out the sale. But I mean, at that point, I don't know. I think I was working at Complete at that point.
Yeah, I do too.
I think you might have just started.
I just remember the early days of hustling, going to the YMCA, meeting people, going to the local gyms around. And I actually, it's funny to look back and realize how many people were driving from the west side of Wichita to Andover because they wanted to support us. So that did tell me that we had something. And of course, I don't think we ever even hit 25,000 in a month before we decided to open our second one, which I can remember. So who's the first guy we ever dealt with, by the way, with product?
Brian Jutnick.
Yeah, Brian Jutnick.
With Europa.
Yeah. So shout out to Brian. We miss him, but he was with us a long time. Pain in our ass, but great guy. Yeah. And so I remember when we decided we were looking into starting our second store, and I don't want to get too much into that, but it is crazy to think that we had the balls, I guess, to start a second one when that first one was not making money.
I do remember that, yeah.
I mean, honestly, if the roles were reversed and somebody else was in that situation with one store that was barely surviving and barely doing any volume, and they asked for my advice, being a business owner at this point where I'm at, I would tell them, fuck no, don't you open a second store. And that's probably what everybody else advises at the time as well. But we felt, I guess, maybe just a little cocky in knowing, like, I think we know,
this is our area.
This is a location thing. This isn't a business thing. This is a location thing. So we decided to just take the risk, and with a retail store that was barely pumping out not even $20,000 a month on its best months, which is barely breaking even, if not maybe just making a little bit of money, not enough really to live off of.
Depends on your overhead.
We decided to pull the trigger and go ahead and open a second location with the idea that this is going to do better for sure because of location.
And to follow up with that, actually my cousin just started a nutrition store up north in Rockford, Illinois, and that was the biggest thing I told him. I was like, hey, don't be afraid to go get another $50,000 just to have.
No. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking business advice and startup capital, we definitely would tell our prior selves, you need double, if not triple of that. And it could have easily been doable, with the payments that needed to be repaid if we just doubled or tripled the loan. But like I said, we went in really lean, and I feel like that taught us some good lessons at first, how to be lean with the business and the finances. So in the end, it all worked out, but we would definitely advise start yourself off to where when you open the doors, you have a good amount of working capital.
Well, in that, I mean, I think inventory is a huge thing. I mean, just like Vince down in Oklahoma that I've kind of been helping him. That's the first thing that I told him is, dude, you can't spend $6,000 to $10,000 on inventory and put it on some wire racks and hope that your just business is going to take off. Like, you have to have options for people and variety of different products, different brands and stuff like that. And if you don't have that, it's just you're never going to get to that. You have to invest a little bit more to attract more of those customers, even if they are lower margin products in the beginning. Like, you got to get people coming in the door.
So, what do you think? Who do you think sparked you to be in business? Family background, friends? I mean, you were really young. When you say you started thinking about 20, most people don't think about business around 20.
Yeah, and I think that was maybe due to the fact that I didn't really find my place in like the school setting, whereas like, out of high school, a lot of my buddies went off to, a university or went to college, and that wasn't really my thing. And I feel like I felt something in sales, which kind of led to business. When you're in a sales job, in a sales career, in the sales force, there's always kind of that level of competition and success and let's make money. And I feel like the next progression out of that, if you continue, your progression in sales, is eventually going into business. And I mean, I guess on top of that, my parents are divorced, so my stepdad, he was in business for himself. My dad owns a couple businesses as well, so I think I maybe grew up around it. And I think I just admired business owners that had a lot going on for them, entrepreneurs, and I just kind of admired that lifestyle. And yeah.
For me, I was super fortunate. Sorry to cut you off. Obviously, my parents built a very untraditional business. No brick and mortar, no overhead, no employees, but they did build a huge team. And for me, growing up, a lot of people don't know. I mean, I was sitting here going to conferences with thousands of people in the stands, watching my mom and dad on stage talking to them. To me, obviously, I looked at them as like these huge heroes and larger than life people. So I was just told by so many people how great our family was, and they told us how much we inspired them and this and that, and so way different upbringing than most. And so I definitely don't I don't regret that. It's been great, but totally different. So that's why when he came to me and said, hey, let's open a retail store, I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything like that. That's so foreign to me. But if you do the right things and you have the right team, you can grow anything. So
yeah, I think it goes back to like what Dustin said with finding that niche in sales. Well, if you're good enough at sales, any business, you can sell yourself, you can sell product, you can sell services, whatever. But until you master that aspect of it, like, you're probably not going to be successful as an entrepreneur. And you have to know how to sell something in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of just randomly, like I said, bounced in and kind of was looking for just some sort of gig right out of high school. And, those kind of door-to-door sales jobs, they sell you the dream. So, and I was young enough at the time to where I bought into it. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of those things, whether it's network marketing or multi-level marketing, things like that can be highly, highly rewarding and beneficial, just like Jeff's parents. But you have to work them, and you have to put in the effort, put in the dedication to make them work.
Just like anything. Yeah.
Just like anything. Obviously,
you're just dealing with people more.
You're dealing with people more, and obviously in certain gigs like the vacuum deal or multi-level marketing, there's not going to be some sort of set salary. You're going to have to go out and get it, which a lot of people aren't either willing to do or just can't find a way to get motivated to do. So I think I was just kind of fortunate enough to stumble upon like the vacuum deal, which kind of got my feet wet in sales and selling myself and just opening interactions with people and talking to people, which those sort of lessons you learn in some of these, especially like entry-level sales jobs, I feel like can be applied to your life in multiple ways, many ways, outside of just bettering yourself in your sales career and bettering yourself in your business career. Just talking to people, just being able to know how to manipulate situations in whatever that may be.
It's funny you say rainbow. I'm sure we talked about this 10 years ago, but I did go to sit with one of my good buddies to an interview, and it was the Rainbows as well. So that company had to be around.
Was it in Wichita?
Yeah. So if anybody here listening
was it before Genesis?
Yes, way before.
So I think there was more.
I was like 18, so it'd been 98. I'm dating
myself. It wouldn't have been the same one that I did, but it's kind of.
No, it was called Rainbow, 100%. No, it was vacuums.
I agree, it was called Rainbow, but it was a different like franchise and franchise owner. It probably wasn't like the same. Like
another one I went to was Cutco Knives. They sit you down in an auditorium, and man, they sell you how much money you can make.
Yeah.
Think about it. I'm 18, 19 years old. The biggest paycheck I had probably gotten was like $700-800 after taxes. That's the biggest one. Probably averaged $300-400. So if somebody's saying you can make $3,000-4,000 in a month, I'm like, are you kidding me? Then you sit there and you go home and you're like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
And if you want to go door to door or anything, you can make $50,000, $60,000 a year. You should be able to.
Yeah.
But
generally, when it sounds
glamorous.
too good to be true, it
Probably
usually
is.
is. That being said, though, when you get sold the dream on some of these, you can make this much, you can make that much. You definitely can, but you need to be in the top 1% of who you're working with. You need to be in the top.
The best is when they filter all the people and they say, "Hey, we've chosen you." They make you think these other 300 people. No, those other 300
and that's
people
also
walk out
the
door.
problem is you start overselling people and overhyping people, and you bring them in, and people quickly realize wow, I need to be really special to make this sort of money.
It's pressure.
And it's pressure, and they kind of break down and they fizzle out. But
what other memories do you have from us starting out? It could be before we open, after we open. Take us back to when you hired Nick and you guys were getting the store ready.
Well, we'll go even a little bit before that. We were talking about me and Jeff working together in Hutch. So when we were in Hutch, and Hutchinson's about an hour from Wichita, so we either A, had to make the drive, or B, we had a hotel at, was it the Hilton?
The
Ramada. You sure?
Yeah.
They're in Hutchinson that the company
under
didn't
the table deal.
The company didn't even pay for. We had kind of like a sideline relationship with the general manager of the hotel. He was like, yeah, well, because they were never full. This is Hutchinson, Kansas.
$300
a month
for unlimited
stays. So we had our own room, our own key.
That's unlimited breakfast too.
Unlimited breakfast. That was the best part.
The maids only came once a week, and that was disgusting. When I room.
You guys all had your own rooms. Or you shared.
No, it was a shared room. One room with 2 queen beds.
Yeah.
And there was 3 or 4 of us that were from Wichita, but were working in Hutch. So just depending on the day of the week and kind of what we felt like that day, we'd either stay in the hotel, and we could have stayed in the hotel for 3-4 nights in a row, or 5 days out of the week, and just drove back to Wichita for 2. Or we could have made the drive every single day. It just depended on the week and the day. But so my memories as far as before Supplement World opened. Because we'd have our work day, and then me and Jeff, or whoever we were staying with, generally it was me and Jeff, would have our little time in the hotel room. You can just picture a little 500 square foot hotel room with 2 queen beds.
I would drink beer, and Dustin would eat clean and eat good.
Two grown men laying in 2 separate beds, just watching ESPN or whatever. And that's where a lot of the ideas and just kind of the initial brain thoughts for Supplement World were initiated. So I remember just us being next to not in the same bed, laying next to each other in the 2 separate beds, just kind of crunching.
Every once in a while.
Crunching finances. And I do remember it was because supplements were obviously a big thing at the time, but they weren't near as big as what they are now. There weren't near as many that, supplements weren't on Amazon yet. None of this. Bodybuilding.com was out there. It just wasn't near as big. And you didn't have that many local retail stores. So I remember a big question for us. We were always trying to figure out is a supplement store profitable? Is this going to work? And we were always trying to Google search it, and we could just never really find anything. And the little bit of information that we did find would kind of be negative and scare us off a little bit and be you can't make any money in supplements. And there were also people from our job at Genesis at the time, some of the leaders there were really trying to scare us off as well and tell us, hey, there's no money in supplements. We've tried to sell supplements here before, and so we kind of just
if you have the wrong location and not the right work ethic, there is no money in it. But that's my memory was writing down our goals. Okay, I can remember writing down, May 2013, we're going to hit $20,000. By June, we're going to be at $30,000. By August, it was the stupidest, most unrealistic growth ever. But it's funny because that store, and I think I probably capped us out at $50,000 a month. I don't know where I came out with that number, but I remember writing down eventually we're going to get this Andover store to $50,000 a month and a 50% margin. That's $25,000 in gross profit. Minus bills, we're going to make $5,000-6,000. We never came close. I don't think we'd have $25,000 maybe once there. But it is so we never did hit what those goals were. But the business is way bigger than I ever dreamed it, because we obviously have 3-4 stores that have hit well beyond $50,000 every month. And so it is funny that those goals do happen, but not the way.
So, Jordon, why don't you give us a little bit of background on kind of when you came in and how that process started, and just a 5,000-foot overview.
So, like I said before, me and you were always joking about, when I was at Complete, that I was kind of giving some tips and tricks and taking some information that I was getting from there. Obviously, that business was way bigger at the time and operating on a completely different structure. I mean, those big box stores, GNCs, Complete Nutrition, Total Nutrition, all that stuff, they operate on a different level because they're selling their own manufactured products. So what you guys are talking about, margin and stuff like that, when you manufacture your own products, your margins are fucking huge. So that was a big thing with Complete. And then, 77 or 80% of the products on the shelf were all Complete Nutrition stuff. And we were required to sell Complete Nutrition brand products, which my biggest thing why I didn't like that was what we have on the shelf isn't necessarily the best fit for the customer. And that was what was so intriguing to me about like branching out and going on with you guys and kind of taking a little bit of that style and then coming in with you guys and having the ability to get people on other products that I felt were a better fit. And also saw that you guys had great potential in what you were doing already. I mean, you guys opened your West store, and I remember from the time that I was in the Andover store and talking to you guys, and then all of a sudden the West store opened, and then we started talking about Oklahoma City, which to me at the time was intriguing to leave Wichita and go live somewhere else for a little bit. And we opened that South Oklahoma City store. And I mean, I remember going down there.
How old were you? I mean, you just uprooted and moved.
It was 20.
You were dating Mallory.
It would have been 2015, right? It
was 2015.
16.
7 years
2016.
ago.
2016, right before 2016.
Yeah. So, 23.
Yeah. You just
22,
you got your own apartment. We didn't pay for it.
Yeah, me and Mallory were still dating at the time.
Gas, maybe a little bit.
No, and I knew what I was walking into. I knew that, I was coming from a big corporate chain where, dollars were a lot bigger thing. And, we came up with an agreement that I felt like was fair for the situation we were at the time. And I was all in. I mean, I was all in from fucking day one, and nothing's changed.
Off those 4 or 5 months, though. That was still the best grand opening month any stores ever.
Oh, dude, I remember getting that apartment in Oklahoma City.
Talk closer. I feel like your voice sounds like this, and me and Jordan's voice sounds like this.
Okay. Son of a bitch,
dude. I think
I'm on all of them.
I think your
it's
mic's off. Your mic's off. I did say first show kinks.
Yeah.
Okay. Dustin had the wrong mic on.
This is totally,
but I should have noticed.
Totally my fault.
I knew I sounded weird. I just thought, well, I got a weird voice.
Yeah.
Very unique.
I wanted to say something a couple of times, but I was like, maybe he's not close enough.
I know. I was like, I'm this close to the damn mic.
Well, did you see how I kept going like
yes.
this? Yeah. Well, see, you don't even have to be like this. You can just be like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, Oklahoma City, got that apartment, and I think I signed my lease in February of 16 and started staying down there. Me and you started driving back and forth. And
because we opened South OKC store
April 1st.
April 1st.
2016.
And when I started going down there, I was still, I think, employed at Complete Nutrition in January, and I used 2 weeks of vacation and started doing stuff with you guys. And we started going down to Oklahoma City, and that's when the renovation was going on for South Oklahoma City. And my earliest memories of really being involved in it, outside of what I was doing in Wichita, was me and you at South Oklahoma City staining shelves and trying to reorganize the store and doing all this shit, eating at that fried steak place across the street every night.
And, we've definitely evolved and grown since then. We've in total opened 10 stores. We have 8 open. So pretty decent ratio there. I wouldn't call us, I wouldn't say we're super distant from back then when we were as far as hands-on being in the store. I mean, if we open a store next month, me and you would be in there probably 100%. Putting together shelves and shit like that. We have refined our systems to we're not, we obviously have a lot more staff, we have a lot more team, and we have a great culture. And that's developed quite a bit over the years. I will say one of my first memories of bringing Jordon on was I felt like back at the time, we had 2 stores because it was right before we opened the third.
Kind of pussyfooted around telling me. You didn't tell me for a while.
Yeah.
And you're like, I think we're going to bring on Jordon. I'm like, dude, that guy's a dick.
Yeah.
He's got no personality.
Well, and here's what I loved about it.
Still a dick.
At the time, we just had the 2 stores, and we're really still kind of trying to figure this thing out. And when you have 2 stores, you're local and you're not really doing much volume, you don't really have a brand established for yourself yet. Like, there's not really a lot of people behind you, and when you're at that stage, and I feel like that's probably most entrepreneurs with most businesses and kind of how they start. You kind of feel just super alone, and that's how I felt at the time. I mean, obviously, I had Jeff, but
we weren't
outside,
we weren't best friends.
Yeah, well, I feel like we were pretty close. I mean, me and Jeff have always worked very well together. I'm just saying, aside from Jeff and I, like our actual staff, any sort of team, any sort of culture,
no, we had none.
None of that was there.
None.
And I'm not saying like when you jumped on or when you came on, like that instantly shifted, but you were like the first team member that we ever brought on.
Came up with ideas
that like systems. I felt like wow, like it's gonna relieve some pressure off me. Like I don't feel as alone anymore. Like this guy can share ideas with me. Like he can do back end stuff. And it was just kind of like a huge, I feel like,
I think it's just that sense of like camaraderie. Like, okay, now I have somebody else that's like with me that's got the same idea. Whereas before it might have been just, we had maybe 4 or 5 different part-timers, some college kids.
My brother, my good friend, my roommate at the time.
Nobody that's bought in.
You're right. Not that they sucked, but none of these people obviously weren't in it for the long run or really gave a shit at the end of the day. If we killed it or if we had just a bad day.
Well, he came in and took ownership. Hey, we're going to start wearing uniforms tomorrow. I'm like, probably should. I mean, we would dress nice, me and you. But then in the summer when it was hot, we'd wear shorts and T-shirts. And
I don't think I ever really wore. I was always.
We did not have uniforms.
It was like the Alex Curry.
We did have uniforms the first month or two. And then we just quit buying.
Yeah, you guys still had some polos. People were still wearing polos every once in a while.
For the record, I always have worn slacks, dress shoes, and a Supp World polo.
I wore a long sleeve shirt, and Jordon, called me out for that a couple times. I looked overly professional. Yeah. I looked like a guy that shouldn't be working a supplement store, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a little too fancy.
When you come in a tux, like before you go to a wedding or something.
Yeah.
Also,
who's this guy?
How about the fact that, and not to get too far into the companies, but we opened the East Central store like 6 months after.
Yeah.
That was rapid growth for a small company.
Well, South Oklahoma City took off.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Dustin were working that store, open to close every day. I still talk about it with all of our staff all the time.
Dustin was?
He was.
Yeah.
Open. No, there was one point in time where we were switching back and forth because at the time we're like, okay, we can't afford to pay anyone else because you guys brought me on. And I was like, whatever, I'll work as much as I can. I just need a day off every once in a while. Well, 21 days in straight of working open to close, I was like, damn, I need a break. Like, I'm getting fucking burnt out because Dustin was sick the week that we were supposed to rotate. And I was at the point I was like, okay, dude, like, we did pretty well last month. I need to hire somebody.
Right. Yeah. Well, also going back to when we first started, my agreement was when we get this loan, you're working the store open to close, no employees. We got no payroll. Shout out to our guy, Nick Newman, who started the company with us.
First employee.
Yep.
Yeah. One of 2.
Dustin calls me. He's like, all right, Jeff, I made an executive decision today. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, well, I just can't do it alone. I had to hire Nick, but he's only going to work for like free, basically. Dude, and he did for the first
looking
2
back,
months.
How actually was I gonna work?
I was an idiot. You were right.
9 to 9 Monday through Saturday, 12 to 6
feasible.
Sunday.
Wasn't feasible.
Definitely wasn't feasible. But again, going back to finances, we had $30,000 to work with. By the time the store opened, we had 0 of it left. So how are we going to pay an employee? I guess we have to do sales. So that, like I said, going back to our finances, but we figured out a way to do it.
I think that's one of those things like what you talked about, the camaraderie and feeling like you have someone that's bought in. Well, you're to that point where like, okay, if we're going to make this investment on this guy, where's the return on investment? Yeah. And I feel like, just having part-time guys all the time, it's just, you're just paying someone to be there.
Right.
So.
And I feel like in different stages of the business, we've got a little lucky. Sometimes I feel like we've got just a little unlucky. And I feel like we've got lucky at the right times. I mean, I think they say for all successful businesses, there needs to be a little bit of luck involved.
Correct.
And I believe in that. So I will say, the first store obviously wasn't a raging success. The location was kind of weird. We opened the second store, West Wichita. Boom,
home run. We had 3 home runs in a row. 2, 3, and 4 home run. And
the next one,
we got humbled.
Yeah, the next one when we brought Jordon on was South Oklahoma City. That was our 3rd store. Boom, big home run. 6 months later, we opened our East Wichita store, 4th store.
Not a home run at first.
No, wasn't a home run at first.
Still did.
Today.
It was a double.
Yeah. It's our best store today.
It is.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Maybe not this month.
I mean, Supp World 4 East Central, shout out. That is a store that really proves that you don't know the first 2 years. That's where that 5-year mark really comes in. Because in fact, it wasn't until we opened Harry and Oliver, which was 3 miles away, that store actually took off. So you would think that would pull away from East Central, but it didn't. But anyway.
So what do you guys feel about the timing? So do you think if take Oklahoma City out of the equation, you just gone from West to East Central, Harry and all, like opened all these stores in Wichita,
well,
and then tried to go into Oklahoma City, you think it would have worked?
I think Oklahoma City gave us a lot of clout.
Here's actually why we
inside joke from yesterday.
Here's why we actually opened Oklahoma City as our third store. So today we have 5 stores in Wichita and we have 3 stores in Oklahoma City, but our third store was open in Oklahoma City at the time. And this could have been a little more realistic at the time, but we were just way off with our train of thought, which my thought at the time when we had the 2 stores, we didn't even have 2 stores in Wichita. We had 1 store in Andover and we had 1 store in
quote to the Wichita Eagle. This will be our last store.
This will be our last store. So when we had the 2 stores in Wichita, just because I think that's kind of how the market was, like our competitor only had 2 stores and there was no other competitors. So we just thought like, hey, this market's going to be way too saturated to open a third store here. We're going to have to go to a different market. And I think in the back of my mind, I just thought like maybe 2, maybe 3 stores per market, depending how big it is. Well, we proved ourselves definitely wrong with that, having 5 stores in Wichita now. Yeah. But that's the reason the third store was open in Oklahoma City.
And you had worked there in the past, and I think that's what really kind of sparked your...
Yeah, so going back to the beginning of the podcast when I said I was in Oklahoma City, found the job for Genesis, then moved back to Wichita. So I had prior experience being in Oklahoma City. I kind of, knew the areas and things, not super well, but I had a good idea just of the market and of the people there and thought it could work. So.
And then Supp World 5, North Oklahoma City.
God.
I mean, I say you don't know for 2-3 years. We knew week 2.
I knew.
We might have known grand opening day.
Day 1.
We're in deep shit here.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pick a bad location.
It was just the whole ominous feeling of that grand opening.
Yeah.
Like
this is not what we're
And when I
used
say
to.
we've got lucky and we've got unlucky, that was one point where we've got unlucky. So some of our luckiness...
Our biggest loan, by the way.
Our biggest loan, yeah. And some of our luckiness has transpired into more success and more growth and faster growth. And that's why we opened the West store, Summit World 2, raging success. Boom, let's open another one. Third store, raging success. Boom, let's open another one. But then certain stores along the way have kind of held us in our tracks. And Supplement World 5, number 5 in North Oklahoma City is a true example of that, where we just thought we were on a roll. We had 3 raging successes when we just thought we knew what we were doing. The first store in Andover was a fluke, and we just got to make sure we pick high traffic areas, and the stores are just going to be huge successes. And we got slapped in the face real quick with our 5th store in a super,
what did we learn?
Super busy location.
We learned how to negotiate after that with our landlords.
Yeah.
We've never gotten stuck in a lease, I guess, again.
Well, it's a super humbling deal. And then 4-star coming along, that opportunity was just...
Awesome.
Landed in our lap.
Relationships right there. That's a good thing we stayed in touch.
And for background, 4-star is Supplement World number 7. It's not even 2 miles from that 5th store that shit the bed. And
2 miles.
It's inside of a gym. And there was a prior supplement store in there, and we got the opportunity. That store moved out. They weren't doing too hot. We decided, hey, maybe we can make it work. So it was an easy transition, closing that fifth store, moving to the 7th. And kind of making it more of a move versus a closure.
Yep.
What are you saying?
What was the overlap on that? Because we had...
You saying
we
time?
had them both open. We had them both open at the same time.
For how long? Was it like 6 months or...
I don't even think.
A couple months because...
We couldn't get out of our damn lease, and that guy...
I remember
thinking he was going to be the nicest guy to work with us, and he's like, yeah, sure, you just give us $20,000. Like, I don't think we don't just have that laying around. We are not this big company.
We haven't even done 20,000 in sales here.
And this brought me back to a point I do want to bring up. Do you remember our first logo? You designed it, and I loved it. Thought it was amazing.
We'll put it on the screen.
Can we also...
Viewers
do you remember the lady that, do you remember that time when you got called out and we had this nasty customer that decided not to be a customer anymore, and she just said, by the way, your guys' logo sucks.
I don't remember that.
Oh my God, it bothered you so much.
You know what I did? Because I think I already, so the logo was made in 5 minutes on some sort of application that was probably similar to Microsoft Paint, and it was blue and red, and it's just an ugly logo. And I think I already kind of deep down hated it. And I was trying.
But some people thought we were like a franchise because they thought it looked so professional, including me.
We still get that.
Now I am disgusted looking at it, but
it is gross.
But this lady, she's like, by the way, on a Google review, your logo sucks and it's so unprofessional. I was like,
probably the deepest cut that you could give me at the time.
One of the worst. It was like one of the worst insults I'd seen. But it did. It was a great advice. Dustin immediately paid some lady $500 to design us our now logo that's been here 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7.5 years we've had it, maybe 8.
Super clean logo. Love it.
Yep. Sticks around.
And we're contemplating changing it to the Supp World deal slightly when we had all those shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Dustin was like, man. Well, it was just like in passing, like literally a 5-minute conversation. Yeah.
Biggest hit ever. Biggest hit.
Those Supp World shirts.
Supp World shirts.
Supp World shirts. The problem is when we had, well, it wasn't a problem, but when we had 2 stores rebranding and changing the logo, seemed like a huge bitch because you got to replace outdoor signage, indoor signage, Facebook logos, ads, everything. So I can't imagine with 8 stores now rebranding to a different logo. Sounds like a total nightmare. Yeah, our logo is good.
Love it. Well, I think it's been a great first podcast. What else have we got to talk about?
I think we're kind of wrapping it up here. Like I said, just kind of getting our feet wet with the podcast thing. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, and hopefully we can hear Jeff for the first 45 minutes.
Yes. Didn't have the right mic in front of my face.
We plan on just getting on here, and next time we wanted to start this thing off just kind of introducing ourselves, what we're doing, the business, some of the background. Eventually we're going to hop into more specific details, whether that be business, whether that be management,
fitness, supplements,
health. Yeah. So we're going to try to cover a wide variety of things and hit different key points every episode. So
absolutely. Love to give value. Feedback's a gift. Anything you guys want to say, comment, subscribe. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
Later.